Hi, my name is Justin Lee, and the topic that we'll be discussing today are redox reactions. So, what are redox reactions? Well, simply, redox stands for reduction and oxidation. First one we'll be talking about is reduction. Reduction we see is a gain of electrons, and oxidation is the loss of electrons. Now, that's great to know, but what does it have anything to do with cellular respiration? Well, cellular respiration is a process of making ATP in mitochondria. Now, to make ATP in mitochondria, we first start off with the glucose. We see that through an oxidization process, we break apart the glucose. And then through glycolysis and Krebs cycle, we, through a reduction process, create NADH and FADH2. Now, before we go on, let's explain what the oxidation process is. Now, what the oxidation process is, it actually oxidizes, creating NAD plus and FAD. Now, this is created through the oxidation of glucose, FAD, NAD. Now, what we see here is through redox reaction in the Krebs cycle, in the glycolysis Krebs cycle, we produce NADH. Now, what's also unique is that through the Krebs cycle, only Krebs cycle, notice, is we create also FADH2, and FAD is another carrier protein. Now, why is this so significant? This leads to a whole discussion about the mitochondria. Now, it's important to know that glycolysis happens in the cytoplasm, which is all this area around here, outside the mitochondria. Now, from the Krebs cycle on, everything occurs within the mitochondria. So, let's first examine what actually happens. So, first of all, the glycolysis happens in this area, and it moves down to the Krebs cycle. And then it finally moves on to the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain is important because it creates the necessity to start the whole process, and how it ends the whole process as well. Now, NADH goes to the oxidizing process after it's created in the electron transport chain. It oxidizes into NAD plus H plus. At the same time, it expels an electron. Now, this electron is important to note because, as you can see, it follows a trail all the way past all three of these enzymes, which the names are actually in order: NADH dehydrogenase, BC1 complex, and the cytochrome oxidase complex, which relatively from left to right. Now, as the electron goes through, we can see that H plus is expelled into the inner, this enlargement of this picture, to the matrix, inside the matrix, and also expels another H plus into the inner space. Now, through this whole process, what happened to the FADH? The FADH actually goes into this small area right here, also known as the Q protein. What's important about this Q protein right here is that this is the location in which the FAD goes through. FADH2. And through the same process of oxidation, it becomes FAD plus FAD plus H plus. So this is what occurs through FAD and NADH. Now, this is how it ends up in a redox reaction. O2 plus H plus goes to H2O. Now, you may be wondering, where does this O2 come from? This O2 actually comes from the air we breathe in, and also from leftovers from the Krebs cycle, which will be discussed later on in next lectures. So the H plus ion also comes from the NAD plus H plus ions that were oxidized before in the beginning of the electron transport chain, which is notified right here. Now this becomes right here, and then the O2, as we stated before, is from the Krebs. And then this forms the H2O, and this is what restarts all the cycles again. H2O, as is well known, is a key component in life, and this is how H2O is created. And later on, we will be also learning about how through the cycle, there's also a protein gradient that's created later on in this electron transport chain. And later, this becomes the part when the ATP synthesis occurs and more ATP is produced. But that's for a different time. So let's review what we learned. First one was the redox reactions. We learned what reduction and oxidation was. Redox was the gain of electrons, and oxidation, the loss of electrons. We also learned that cellular respiration is a process of making ATP in mitochondria. Then we learned how this all applies to all the parts of cellular respiration. We learned that glucose goes through the oxidizing process, and the glycolysis and Krebs cycle goes through redox process, which creates NADH and FADH2. We found that this NADH and FADH go once more to the oxidizing process, creating H plus and NAD plus. This H plus is used to create vital nutrients in our body, in particular H2O, which combines with the O2 as a byproduct from previous stages. And later on, this H plus on the bottom we also learned will later on create ATP, the currency, if you will, of all cells and the energy that they get, which will be later discussed in the electron transport section of this chapter. So that's all for the importance of redox reactions and how they relate to cellular respiration.